Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode of Alicia in Cryptoland. This series aims to introduce those early stage projects with original ideas. Today our guest is Taylor from ENUM DAO. Hi Taylor, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So glad to have you here. So to start with,
Thank you.
Could you briefly introduce your project?
Sure. So my name is Tyler. I'm the head of product and growth here at ENUM. And what we're doing is we are replacing phone numbers with sort of this novel NFT messaging endpoint that can serve as a globally routable phone number within applications like Signal.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I have changed my numbers for many times. Every time you have to go to another country, you need to change your number, or otherwise they gotta charge you for the roaming fees. I think it's gonna be great if you can have, you can have a universal number for everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're super, like, we've got a lot of sort of core philosophies. Obviously, decentralization and security encryption are really, really critical to us. And so if you've ever used an application like Signal, for example, which is quite popular, there's 40 million or so users out there. It's fantastic and it's encrypted within the Signal ecosystem, but there's one major security vulnerability, which is the phone number itself. And so current day phone numbers are susceptible to problems outside of the system. SIM swapping, or excuse me, phishing is quite a problem, SMS spam, but one of the other really big concerns is SIM swapping. And so a lot of people that use these encrypted messaging applications, they love the encryption, but they hate giving out their phone number. And so we're going to replace that with something that is this novel messaging NFT that serves as kind of that phone number endpoint. It does serve as that phone number endpoint. They can exist and communicate with the legacy telco infrastructure, so you can still text your mom or call your mom who's maybe not using our version of the messaging application, but within the system, it's all end-to-end encrypted. And then you also get some added benefits by being able to have additional sort of Web3 add-ons, right? So you can do native payments, you can do things that you don't really get within a current SMS infrastructure, if you will.
Okay, that's great. And could you tell us more about your teams, your background, etc.?
Sure. So our team actually, we've worked together for over 2 decades, not myself, but in total. So our CEO and founder and head engineer worked together back 20 years ago, building kind of cutting edge firewall applications. They built one of the most commercially successful firewall applications. The rest of our team, we've been working together for the better part of 6 years now, previously on a blockchain identity company called Life ID. And now we've moved on into ENUM. And so we've got a really long-standing kind of team relationship that we've worked together on different projects. And so so our team consists of engineers. We have a sort of a head of our DAO and ecosystem, and then I'm on the product and growth side. So I'm bridging the gap between making sure we've got a really killer user experience, and then we can do things that sort of resonate with the community and help get that out in the world.
Yeah, that's great to start with the Web3 ID. I think this is actually really a trend. How do you come up with the idea to get an NFT number project?
That's a great question. It is sort of a combination of many years of experience, both on building this sort of new kind of Web3 identity infrastructure, as well as our CEO, he was actually SIM swapped a few years ago. And so that SIM swapping really led to, we need to find a better way to be able to communicate than relying on these sort of insecure phone numbers. And so what's really interesting is there's quite a few parallels between the identity problem and the identity issue and also phone numbers. Interestingly enough, there are over 5 billion phone numbers in the world. And so it is really considered the primary sort of identifier, if you will, for communication. The problem is that most people don't want to share those, and most people don't want to give them out. And then they come with a whole host of all these security vulnerabilities like SIM swapping. And so we really think about this problem space as kind of a combination between we're solving a identifier problem that is used for messaging and communication specifically, but that solves a lot of kind of the legacy security vulnerabilities as a result. So that's how this problem came to be. And really it's all of the learnings that we did around building identity structures or infrastructure that is used sort of in this new way that we can think about decentralized identifiers, and also being able to focus primarily within the communication and the telecommunication messaging space for something that ends up really functioning as a identifier, if you will, but in a way that is specifically for communication.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, I've never seen any similar project on the market, and that's why I would like to invite you as my guest of my show. I know there are a lot of other projects which use wallet as a way to messaging to each other, but I don't know. Did you ever find any similar project in the area of maybe a messaging or as the identifier? Have you ever found any?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are some projects out there that are doing messaging with like a wallet address, for example. And so the way that we're thinking about things is that our NFT messaging endpoint is actually a globally routable phone number. So we are in the process of getting allocation of an 883 code, which for those who aren't familiar, it's a global area code that exists outside of a geographic reason. And they're built specifically for these sort of novel use cases. And so what makes our project a little bit different is that we are able to interop with the legacy infrastructure, but we can also provide a far more secure end-to-end encrypted experience for those that are already using, for example, a Signal with 40 million people. And so what that enables us to do is that we can have a Web3 endpoint that you can do native Web3 messaging with, but it also exists outside of just that ecosystem. So this means that you can connect things like your ENS name or your Web3 name, for example. It's not exclusive just to Ethereum, but because it's an NFT, it also provides graphical or sort of visual representation that you can use to solve other problems that are related to, is this person actually who I think I'm speaking with? So if you get a phone number that texts you, for example, and you say, hey, this looks like someone I might know, but you really have no idea who it is, we can solve some of those problems as well with a generative NFT that could function as sort of think of it as like a PFP for messaging, right? So you can use that as a way to say, hey, this is how you can get in contact with me, but you also can be able to verify by going, this is some of the benefits that you get with blockchain, right? Where you can go and actually say, yeah, I know who I'm speaking with. And so those are, so that's a little bit of how we are differentiated from just like a wallet messaging application. We see the world moving in terms of this decentralized wireless trend where eventually everything's going to become data only, and we want to be positioned to use that infrastructure, but also be able to still ensure that we're working and kind of communicating with the legacy tech as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think the point I like about your project is that you focus in only one point. Like you are a number. You didn't even try to add other functions, but in other way, it's a very large scale. You try to incorporate both people from Web 2 and Web 3. So just focus on one point, but you can cover the most of the people.
Yeah, and that's just our pragmatic, execution, right? Obviously, it's great if you can blow it all up and just rebuild a better solution stack. The challenge is that growing the network effect is really difficult. And so what part of why I think we're poised for a lot of success is that our strategy is predicated not on necessarily building out network effect, but we can leverage existing networks, whether it's ENS users that want to use their ENS with Signal. There's 1 million people that own an ENS name, right? There's actually not 1 million people that own it. There are 1 million registered ENS names currently. There's 40 million people using Signal. There's 5 billion people using phone numbers. And so if we can create this sort of disproportionate amount of value for those groups, we can really scale up quite fast and not need to worry about trying to build out those kind of network effects. And so from a strategic standpoint, it's really how we're going to attack the market, and we're leveraging what we're doing to make just all of these tools that we're familiar with even more useful.
Okay, and except ENS, what other NFTs I can use as my member? Is there any kind of NFT counts?
Yeah, so the to unpack that a little bit, the ENUM itself is a generative it'll be represented as a generative image that you can associate other images with. So it's not to say that this will become like it's not to say that this ENUM will be like sort of embedded in like a current NFT, for example, but you can use this as think of it as you're using it as your messaging NFT. So just like you'd use maybe a Bored Ape or like a nouns on your Twitter profile pic, you could have this NFT that is used specifically for when you want people to message you. And so that's how the actual generative or the art side of it comes into play. So part of that is it's fun. Part of it's that it's something that's a little bit more interesting or creatively aesthetically pleasing than just a number. So that's the actual image aspect of it. But it will still enable you to use like you would a current profile pic, but specifically for messaging connectivity.
Oh, okay, great. And in terms of the infrastructure, what do I need to use ENUM? Like I always need Wi-Fi or anything else?
Yeah, so in terms of the infrastructure, you will need either Wi-Fi or a data plan. And so as I mentioned a little earlier, we do see the world moving with data only. Like eventually you will not be paying for cellular or SMS. That's down the road. You'll be paying for data only. And so we're positioning ourselves to really be that endpoint that'll be used within a data only network, but with the caveat being that it will still work within that traditional telco space. And so for now, if you want to be able to message people via like the regular SMS or do a phone call, for example, you'll need to still have some cellular connectivity for that, obviously. But with just within the ecosystem, Wi-Fi totally works, data totally works. You don't actually need the cellular connection. Frankly, it's better if it is within network, if you will, because it does provide the true end-to-end encryption that we'll have with our messaging application. So that's what you would need, but it's something that you would presumably already have if you're using a smartphone, for example, or if you're using this on a desktop or a laptop. So
yeah, that sounds very interesting. Can't wait to try it. How about the development of your product? When I can actually use it?
Sure. So we actually just announced the waitlist for our alpha product, and that will come out in early July, so a little under a month from now. Okay. Our alpha will be a desktop only version that enables you to connect your ENS with a version of Signal. So it'll be supported on Mac and Windows, and you'll be able to do an ENS lookup. So functionally what you'll do is you'll add your phone number as a text record, and then that'll enable you to do a lookup, and you can message other ENS names that have that text record set. So within the Signal ecosystem. So this will be our own flavor or our own version, but it'll interop with all of the other existing Signal users that are out there, which is about 40 million or so. So that'll be the alpha release that comes out. Our full version, where you'll actually be able to mint that NFT that is a globally routable phone number, will be later this year. And we'll have iOS and Android versions of that, which is primarily how people do messaging or want to do messaging, I should say. But this alpha release will be really great because it'll give those, as I mentioned, I think it's around a little under 400,000 like people that actually own these ENSs, but there's over 1 million of them registered. So all of those folks will be able to use their ENS name within the Signal ecosystem.
Okay, and in order to join the alpha test, do you need to subscribe in somewhere, or?
Yeah, so if you go to our Twitter or if you go to our Discord, we've got it pinned. There's a landing page where you can go and sign up, and you'll get added to the waitlist there. So once you're added to the waitlist, when our alpha becomes available, we will share it out. So our Discord members will get first access to it. And then if you share the link and you message us in Discord, you'll get priority access there too. So if you go to either our Twitter, which is just ENUM DAO, or if you join our Discord, which is also linked on our Twitter account, those folks will get priority access. Okay,
that's great. And for those who are watching this video, I'm going to put all those links in the description. If you're watching this, you can do the alpha tester. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Looking forward to hear more development of ENUM.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure getting to chat with you.
Thank you very much. I will see you later. Bye-bye.
Take care.